We all know that Genshin Impact is a pretty easy game, so today, let's ramp up the difficulty of it. Genshin's main combat gimmick relies a lot on elemental reactions, so what if I take away the ability to rely on reactions, but instead play through the entire game from start to finish using Electro characters only? Well, under normal circumstances, beating Genshin with Electro only is impossible, but I'm gonna lay out some rules that can make this challenge more successful. First, I will be allowed to use a lifeline for mandatory element puzzles that we encounter through the Archon quest. I will be allowed to use the character for puzzles and cannot use them to attack enemies. To make this challenge fair, I can only use the lifeline 3 times total throughout the whole challenge. So there's a decent balance. Second, for Archon quests where we get forced trial characters that are not Electro, I can only use their physical attacks. Lastly, to make this challenge even harder, I will have to ascend my world level, which means that I will have to level up my characters as I progress. I did most of this challenge live on Twitch, so if you would like to watch this live, give me a follow on Twitch and consider giving this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed. So starting on a brand new Genshin account, I'll have to reroll to hopefully get at least one Electro character. Since the game starts out with Traveler, I try to complete the combat tutorials without attacking the enemies with my elemental damage. Here's where I also figured out that the Pyro Slimes in the beginning were completely harmless, as they didn't even bother to fight back. So I was basically able to push the enemies into the water without even needing to deal damage. I just noticed that these slimes don't even attack you. Wait, they attack? That didn't do any damage to me. Wait, do they even do damage to you? I don't even know. Wait, they don't! They don't do damage to you? They don't do any damage. No, even if they hit me, they don't do damage. Look, they're not even trying to attack me. Like, I think it's because it's like a beginner like tutorial, so you don't want it to see. They didn't do anything to me. Or maybe this Lumine is like invincible. After getting Amber, I had to pop the animal slime balls with her, but since it was physical damage, she gets a pass. The first Electro camp encounter was also only possible to do with Traveler and Amber, so I had to use physical damage here as well. I don't know what you would consider the Devolum boss fight as, but let's pretend we are giving Devolum a shocking back massage. After meeting the Mondstadt Knights of Favonius gang, we unlock the ability to wish. I decided to wish on a standard banner because there are more options, so wish me luck. Okay, I see a lag. No 5 stars. It's so rare to get a 5 star. There's no weapon, at least give me a character. Okay, Hydro. Unfortunately, if Gacha decides not to give me at least one Electro character, I just log off and start a brand new account. So on my second account, I stayed with a standard banner. Let's get... Honestly, I want anyone but Dory will work. Dory also maybe could be good, but I prefer to have all the other characters instead. So yeah. Not weapon though, please. So yeah, I was rewarded with possibly the best 4-star Electro option for now. With Genshin's new version starting, we get 600 Primogems just for logging in. So this will definitely be helpful for me, as my goals for this challenge is getting both Veressa and Ian-san for this banner. After collecting enough for a temple, I decided to test out my luck. Oh well. Let's see, Ian-san please. If not, then I will have to struggle for more fates. Okay, it's getting very, very late. No, wait, it's Mika again! This is the second time I got Mika, literally, on this banner. Yup, sadly I got an off-banner 4-star. But this means my next 4-star on this banner is guaranteed to be one of the 3 4-star characters rated up. So essentially, I have a 33% chance of getting Ian-san as my next 4-star. I'm just doing singles. Wait, should I do singles though? I don't know. I don't trust singles. I caved and decided to just post singles. If I get a 4-star, then it'll be a guarantee on banner character. That is if I get one, right? Please? No? Okay, I'm 2 pity in or something now. While going through the Mondstadt questline, I went to my first challenge domain of this series. With my roster consisting of only Oruran and Lisa, I had to face some Electro slimes. Wait, the enemies are level 17 now. It's kinda hard. Uh-oh. Luckily, Oruran is a bow character, so physical attacks were able to do some damage. But this was honestly the preview of what's in store for us as we progress through the game. The final boss of this domain was the Voltyea agent. Even though I could deal electro damage against him, the fight was pretty annoying, since the enemies could just turn invisible. Ruin Guards, on the other hand, was pretty easy with Oruran, as I could just shoot the core. Although it took me 2 minutes to kill it, I continued on to the next domain with only 152 HP. This domain was pretty simple, as I just had to shoot with Oruran from a long range. Whoa, that was a nice dodge. Thankfully, there were only pyro slimes in here, so my fully charged attack shots were effective against the enemies. Another great thing about starting this challenge with Oruran is that he's able to cheese through this domain with his vertical jump. So exploration was pretty easy. The last part of the domain was the most difficult, as there were a few electro slimes. I actually came up with a plan to make this somewhat easier here. Okay, I gotta lure the slime over here, and then hopefully I can overload it. There was also an Abyss Mage, but since there were puddles here, all I had to do was to stand and watch as their shield got depleted. Nice, he just went right to the water. After completing the Act 2 prologue, I had to get to AR 18 before I could continue. With some story completed, I was able to obtain a few fates from the Adventurer's Handbook. Wait, so do I get... Oh, I do get another fate. Yes, okay. Will this give me Ian-san though? Well, another one? So I decided to pull. Wait, lag? Ian-san? Ian-san? Please? Yes, oh. I got so lucky. Okay, now I trust singles. Yeah, getting Ian-san was pretty lucky, as it was an early 4-star. But I wasn't gonna stop here. Do I just keep doing singles or should I wait? And he says singles were a scam? I mean, I'm hoping for more Ian-san cons actually. But that was guaranteed 1 in 3, so that's 33% chance. Up to you. I mean, maybe this account could be potentially the first early 5 stars. Wait, I see a huge lag. Oh, no way! What? I don't have to wait anymore. Well, I wasn't a single pole believer in the past, but this definitely converted me into a believer. So yeah, 16 polls on this account got me the 2 characters that I wanted, so I guess the challenge officially begins now. Okay, so let's see how far I can take Veressa and Ian-san as well. I can ascend. Good. Level 40 Veressa now. Okay, that's perfect. Got my character to level 40. So that's nice. I can't ascend like Oruran still, but oh well. I started exploring in Liyue in order to level up my adventurer rank. And I gotta say, Veressa definitely changes Electro-only account for the better. Her damage alone sped my farming speed by a lot. And I even got to adventure rank 17. I also did a quick single pull on the standard banner to test my luck. But this might be a 4-star since I did a good amount of singles already. Yup. Wait, what? No! I continued on the Mondstadt questline after reaching AR 18. Most of the enemies that we faced during the quest were pretty easy. There were a bunch of Abyss Mages, but since it's Pyro, they were easily dealt with. The development part was also the same as earlier, where I'm basically forced to use Traveler. And the boss fight itself was a piece of cake with Veressa. Even though it took 2 phases, the fight was super quick. I'm wondering, does anyone also want to get stabbed by Signora? No one? Only me? Okay. So yeah, with the Mondstadt Archon quest completed, my next goal is to get to AR 23. Since I also unlocked the waypoints, I immediately teleported to Natan, only to get forced into the unskippable story with the little buddy Saurian. This was my first taste of the Rifthound enemies, but they were still pretty easy with Veressa. Afterwards, I quickly made my way to the volcano area in order to fight the lava dragon statue boss. Let's just say, this lava ball fight was not what I initially expected. Wait, this boss is hard! Ow! Do I need pyro for this boss? Actually? Look at my damage. After a few rotations, I was only able to deal a tiny bit of damage to the boss. and even got punched. With this, I came up with a plan. Do I really need a QQ sword? And then I'll come back here, maybe with a QQ sword, so I can do pyro attacks. I'm so desperate. So the plan was to abduct a QQ sword somewhere in Natan and use the QQ sword's pyro attacks to get rid of the lava dragon's balls and lower its defense. While scouting a nearby area, I finally came across one. Whoa! I thought it was a QQ sword, but that was only a small... Wait, I found it. I got it. Now just to not drown. With the QQ Source's pyro attacks, this challenge should be easy now, right? This feels so desperate. No! I can't dodge it! Come on. I'm filling the bar so slowly. No! Yeah, QQ Source's movements on the ground isn't the best. And paired up with its slow attacks and how hard a boss hits, this will be a challenge. Thankfully, the QQ Soul will respond. So I basically repeated the process again. Alright, I got a plan this time. Wait, I didn't plunge? Ow. What is it? Why does it do that? My one bird literally barely got half of the HP done. It's now throwing rocks at me, I think. No, it's exploding. Well, it won't help if my Veressa dies, right? Okay, one bird down. No. This is like top tier gameplay. Wait, Overload also helps, I think. Die! That's bad. Okay. It's out of its shell now. But a good thing about this boss is though, like, I don't know if it goes back into the rock form. But so far, it looks like it doesn't go back in. So after I break the shield once... Wait, press the self-destruct button? And this is how you do it with Electro only. Only cause the life of one bird and you can finally obtain one drop. I raised Oruran to level 40 and did a few pulls on the weapon banner. If I get R1 then that'll be perfect. Okay. Official? Maybe a catalyst? I also started a Razor questline that will be important later in the challenge. Leandria's boss fight was also pretty easy since Electro can just tear the boss down. And after completing the quest, it was time to move on to the Liyue Archon quest. Having Veressa definitely helped out with traveling through the region since her movement skills were top notch, making unlocking waypoints in Liyue relatively fast. The middle-left soldier fight went as you might have expected, especially since there was no Electro resistance. For the Cloud Retainer part of the quest, thankfully there was already pyro for the cooking pot, so I was able to offer up the food and enter the domain. This domain normally requires pyro, but with Aurora's jump, I was able to just glide my way to the end of the domain, and completed the first act of the Archon quest. With me being locked out of the next act because of my adventure rank, I went to complete Elisa's story quest. Since this account was Electro only, I didn't have to cheese through the domain and I can just play through it like the game intended. The domain was also pretty easy with an Abyss Mage being dismantled by my Electro team, so I was able to quickly complete the quest. I also went to complete a few more Mondstadt domains and more story quests. After completing them, I finally got to AR25. Before anything else, I had to do the Ascension domain. Thankfully, the Electro Hypostasis got taken out of this quest, so even with an Electro only account, this was possible without any lifelines. Anyways, I continued on the Liyue Archon quest, but this is the first part of the challenge where I will have to use my support character Lifeline. You see, there is this one part where I am forced to use Pyro to light up a cooking pot. So I just used my Traveler to light up the pot. The teapot domain was kinda annoying with the Electro Slimes, but luckily there were some Pyro flowers that we could use to overload them. Since we ascended our world level earlier, the enemies here were all level 40, which kinda makes the fight more challenging even with Veressa. It was also at this point where I realized that not having a healer on my team was definitely a mistake. Thankfully, we were still able to complete the Archon quest, but now we are locked out of the next act until we get to AR28. I used the rest of my resins on a lava dragon statue boss, and got rewarded with 2 drops for the troubles. I also went to farm for Oruran's boss ascension materials, and to my surprise, I was able to defeat the boss on time with Veressa without it flying away. Anyways, I ascended Veressa to level 50 and moved on to the next part of the Liu Archon quest. This is also the second part where I'll be forced to use my lifeline, since my current team is unable to reach the platform to trigger the next part of the quest. So yeah, I had to use my second support lifeline. But for future challenges though, if you know any other ways to get up the platform, let me know in the comments below. I continued on my Electro only by fighting some Millelith soldiers once again, and also infiltrated a Fatui hideout without having to fight them. No, don't turn around. Please. Okay, I got it. Even though I'm gonna get shot now by the Fatui, but it's worth it. Wait. The Fatui didn't even see me! The cryo flowers are also a piece of cake, so I had no problems dealing with them. Finally, it's the Childe fight. The beginning was easy since he only had hydro resistance. But starting from the second phase, here's when things get a little bit tricky. Okay, please don't shoot back at me! He is doing that. He's doing a counter attack right now. Luckily, Veressa's attacks made it hard for Childe to hit me, so I was able to dodge a few attacks. Even with some electro resistance, Childe was no match for my team, and I was able to defeat him. The final Guizhong Bautista defense was fairly simple, as I only had to stall for a few minutes. And in the end, I completed the Liu Archon quest. In order to get to AR 30, I quickly went through the Xinqiu story quest, and got a good amount of EXP from it. I did a tempo on a weapon banner and got a 4-star catalyst, but it's probably not something that I'll be using for this challenge. Next, I took care of a few prerequisite quests before continuing on with the challenge. The Dainslev domain consists of a few Abyss mages, but since they're both Hydro and Pyro, getting through the domain was a breeze. I quickly completed part 1 of the quest and continued on. And also, here's a fun fact for Dainslev's domain. This treasure hoarder still blinks, so I guess he's a very good actor. Anyways, at the end of the domain, we had to fight the Abyss Herald. There were a bunch of other enemies to fight throughout the quest, but they didn't really pose a challenge for me. So far, this challenge might be deceptively too easy, but who knows? Once I continue on through the Archon quests, I might be eating my own words. So far, the Abyss enemies that I've encountered were all weak against Electro, so I had no problems destroying the shields. Back in the domain, we had to face a wave of Abyss enemies, but like before, Veressa was able to finish the fight, and I was able to complete the final act of the first chapter. So I continued on the story and started the Kazua questline. There was a part involving Traveler again, so I had to rely on physical damage in order to progress through the story. Even though there were more Electro Slimes for me to fight, at this point of the game, my Oruran was able to deal with them with physical attacks as well. After defeating the last treasure hoarder, I was able to complete the questline. I made my way to Sumeu and unlocked the Statue of the Seven, and more importantly, found a Dendrograna. So I enlisted a few viewers from my Twitch stream to help me out with the task. But essentially, I will be teleporting to Sumeu to quickly grab the Dendrograna and go back to the Electro Hypostasis at the right timing in order to destroy the prisms with an Electro-only team. Even though this might sound like a great idea, the execution was hard and I failed many times. Ow! What? Oh, okay. My Dendrograna is still here, even after I died. Alright, now I just gotta kill the boss on time. And it expired! Just having to coordinate the timing with others and being able to get 3 shots off before the Dendrograna disappeared was a challenge itself. Oh, are we doing it? No! God. Okay, I'm just gonna look. Okay, nice. I kind of failed my jump, so the thing ran out. Alright, go, 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 go. I'm ready. No! You're wasting time. Ow. Please. It's gone. It's gone! Come on. What? Where did my last thing go? I think my Dendrograna disappeared mid-flight. I'm pretty sure I shot it out and it still disappeared. But being able to finish the Electro Hypostasis fight by doing this was honestly really satisfying by itself, and I felt really accomplished afterwards. Nice. This got progressively easier the more we did it, and I was able to finish the boss the first try by the end of it. Nice. Oh, I got 2 of the prisms as well. So yeah, I just want to give a quick shout out to all my viewers on Twitch, and if you also want to participate or watch the chaos, come over to my Twitch streams to witness it all live. Oh, and also shout out to the Yao that decided to show up on the weapon banner. So with the Liyue Archon quest completed, I could now quick start the Natan Archon quest. It's pretty funny seeing the Fontaine cast before I even got through the story, but we can now officially start the Natan Archon quest. So the only reason why I started Natan before Inazuma was because the questline gives a lot of adventure EXP. And also with the forced trial characters in the Archon quest, the enemies are a bit lower level because of my adventure rank. But yeah, with the Archon quest forcing me to use Kachina and Mualani here, I could only use Kachina as Mualani is a catalyst character who does hydro damage only. During the tournament arc, there was also another part that we're basically forced to use Kachina. And even though I had to use Kachina's elemental skill to climb up the wall, I was still able to defeat the boss in the end. But yeah, I don't know what's with Natan and their forced trial characters. Alright. Kazin loves torturing me as well. At least I'm dealing like a dent of damage. There's no like hydro, there's no water anywhere here, so I can't push the Pyrolector anywhere. Wait, is there actually? No, there's a barrier, but I believe there's water behind over there. Oh well, I'll just physical attack it, I guess. The Pyro Abyss Lector here was also another one of the most painstaking fights, since we had to destroy the Pyro shield with only Kachina. And the only way to do so is to slowly chip away the shield with physical attacks. Let's see how much damage I do. Wow. Wait, can I do this? I can! You can't use physical on the little ball that he summons. Well, this is gonna be fun. To be honest, this wasn't that bad, as it only took 10 minutes for me to destroy the shield. And believe me when I say this, there will be more fights in the future that are even harder than this. For fights that involve the Electro Hammer for Tui, I mainly just focus on him with Veressa before he can cast his shield. Well, at least I attempted to, because Veressa's auto-targeting was all over the place. No! No! Okay, I think I can still do enough, maybe. Just don't heal it! Healed. So for the war arc in Natan, there were plenty of fights for my Electro-only teams to deal with. But I want to say that for 99% of the fight, I was able to get them done without any issues. It was also in Natan where I encountered one of my most hated enemies for this challenge. Yep, for the Electro Abyss Mage's shield, I had no other way around it besides just using physical attacks. And you can probably guess how thick the shield was, as it took me a few minutes to get it down. For the rest of the act, it was pretty much as you might have expected with Veressa, being able to clear everything here without any issues. And we were able to complete the 4th act of the Natan Archon quest. With the final act upon us, we basically had to infiltrate the Night Kingdom with miHoYo. And in this section, there's yet another forced trial character. We also encountered a Cryo Abyss Herald that I had to deal with, but since miHoYo is a Claymore character, she can destroy the shield pretty quickly. In the final battle with the Gosoithoth, it was yet another forced trial character, this time with Pyro Traveler. Thankfully, we're invincible, so no matter how many times we took the fatal hit, we could just get back up. A few minutes later, miHoYo would join the battle. I continued on with just using physical attacks, but at a certain point, I'm basically forced to use elemental damage to continue the fight. Yeah, just pretend this is all Electro and I'm totally not casting any pyro attacks here. Overall, the boss fight took me around 30 minutes since I mostly did physical attacks. But this fight overall was just a pain for Electro only with the forced trial characters. I'm glad I was able to do Natan first though, because if I left it at the very end, it would have definitely been more challenging. But the whole quest took me around 8 hours to complete. Before continuing on the story, I sped through the Ascension Domain. Even with a timed challenge, my characters were able to finish off the level 60 enemies. To prepare for the Inazuma Archon quest, I quickly ascended my Veressa and Ian-san to level 60. I also resonated with my Traveler with Electro as well, and I finally raised him to level 50. Even though I raised my world level, the combat in Inazuma felt around the same difficulty as Nathlon. And unlike Nathlon, the domains in Inazuma were all easier, because there weren't any forced trial characters, so Veressa can just do her thing. Next came one of the most challenging fights for my Electro-only account. The first Raiden Shogun boss fight. If you didn't know, the Raiden Shogun boss fight in the story is completely immune to Electro. So we pretty much have to rely on physical attacks to deal any damage. Luckily, this was the first time we fought her, so after a few minutes of the battle, it'll automatically end by itself. But yeah, Raiden will definitely be another challenge later on in the Archon quest. The rest of the training arc was pretty straightforward. And since we can use Electro characters, I didn't have to use any support lifelines for this Electro Monument part in the Archon quest. The Delusion Factory domain was a bit challenging, especially with the amount of fatouis that we had to deal with. There were also Electro Hammer Bros that had the shields, and things didn't exactly go as planned. Wait, shield? So after 10 or so minutes of the domain, I was finally able to clear it. With the Raiden Shogun training nerfed, we apparently had to fight Helichos to prepare to fight an Archon. So yeah, nice thinking, Miko. Next we have the Kucho infiltration where Sarah joins as a trial character. With a full 5 Electro team, this team was able to clear the domain relatively easily. I crafted a prototype Amber earlier and equipped it on Veressa, so I'm prepared for the Signora fight. With the first phase being cryo resistance, there were no negative effects on Veressa. But I guess the prototype Amber's heals weren't enough as I still suffered some casualties. The second phase was a bit more challenging, so I had to play a bit more carefully, especially with a constant DOT. My whole strategy was to take it slowly, and I eventually was able to triumph. Next up is arguably one of the hardest challenges so far in the Electro-only account. Yup, I'm talking about a Raiden boss fight. With Ace's immunity to Electro, all I had going for me was the physical damage. With Oruran hitting around 100 damage with his physical attacks, I knew I was in for the long run. Unlike the initial Raiden fight, this time we actually had to deal damage in order to win. To make this challenge even more difficult, Ace's attacks were pretty lethal as she deals at least 1000 damage each hit. With my characters being relatively low level, this will be fun. The fight will get interrupted a few minutes in with a pretty cool cutscene, but once we continue the boss fight, reality slowly crept in. Damage wise I'm doing... Ow! I don't know who's doing more damage. I think Traveler does more damage. Unlike the Natan boss fight, we don't have unlimited lives this time. So once you run out of revives, it's pretty much game over. And after 10 minutes of struggling, I wasn't even coming close to winning. So I chose to give up and build my characters instead. I went ahead and enhanced some artifacts, and claimed some of my standard fates for my characters. Wait, let me do some polls actually. I always forget about this. What if I get Cookie right now? What? Anyways, I went and farmed some Fatui drops in order to level up my prototype Rancor sword. I also farmed enough to ascend Traveler to level 60, as he will be pretty important for the Raiden fight. I got more pulls again, so I went ahead and did some. Alright, give me the cookie. No! Wrong healer. Oh, wait, cookie? Cookie. I mean, at this point, with the amount of claymores I get, it's gonna be like Dory or something next. So with all my character upgrades, I went back to the fray. And this time, there was a noticeable difference to my damage. I mean, at least this time when I'm doing damage, I can see the dent. Please do like 700. 800? Okay, she attacks faster now. But at least I'm doing more. Oh, 1000? Traveler was able to hit 1k damage as well, so my upgrades were definitely game-changing. The rest of the fight was pretty much the same, and I was able to finally defeat Raiden. And that's the end of the Inazuma Archon quest. So before I could move on to the Sumeu Archon quest, I had to do the final act of Chapter 2. This is another quest that involves Dainsleif, and contains one of the most grueling fights in the whole challenge. Enemies in Chasm were all pretty tough with their high HP, but the worst part has yet to come. During the middle of the quest, I also got to AR 40, which automatically raised my world level to 5. This means that enemies are now level 70 plus. Since this quest involves Dane, you can pretty much expect to fight some Abyss enemies. The first one I encountered wasn't bad, as it was a Hydro Abyss Herald, but the difficulty increase as a result of my world level was definitely noticeable. It was also here that I met my worst nightmare yet. Yup, I'm talking about the Electro Abyss Lector. As you can tell from a new entry pop-up, this was my first time I encountered this enemy on my Electro-only account. And with the boss being at level 71, I can tell that I will be stuck here for a long time. The first part of the fight was actually not bad, as Veressa can pretty much shred its HP down relatively quick. But once the Abyss Lector generates his shield is when the nightmare truly began. So with my characters being Electro, most of my attacks were pretty much useless since the shield is immune to Electro damage. In order for us to move on, we had to destroy the shield. And just to let you know, this is how much damage to the shield I was able to do in 20 seconds. Not only that, the Abyss Lectors' attacks were annoying as well, as they can suck my elemental energy away. I don't want you to suffer, so I sped the clip up. But this whole fighting sequence took me 36 minutes. Yep, 36 minutes of constant dodging, the only minuscule amount of damage, and the worst part, hearing the Abyss Lector yap throughout the whole fight. So yeah, make sure to give this video a like for my dedication to the challenge. Even after the Lector fight, there were still some Abyss Mages that I had to fight. One of the sections also had an Electro Abyss Mage, so it's almost as if the game is just making fun of me at this point. It took me a good 5 minutes of normal attacking to destroy the shield, but after that, I pretty much just one-shotted the enemy. There was also another wave of the Electro Abyss Mage, but since this time it was paired up with a Pyro one, I could just overload the Pyro shield, and it was effective against the Electro Abyss Mage. So yeah, thanks Stainzilla for making the Electro Abyss Lector my most hated enemy now. Before I moved on to Sumeu, I finished the early floors of the Spiral Abyss, and got enough Primogems for a temple. I managed to get Kujo Sara, who is an Electro character, but at this point of the game, I decided not to raise her since I already had Oruran. I was also able to finally get a 5-star on a weapon banner. And not surprisingly, I lost my 50-50. At least this was still a catalyst weapon, so Veressa can actually use it. I was also able to ascend Veressa and leveled up her weapon to 60. The Sumeu Archon quest definitely brought back a lot of memories. There were some Dendro mechanics that we could easily complete with a Dendro Grana. So element-wise, Electro only was pretty much smooth sailing. There wasn't much combat involved, but with my damage upgrades from earlier, Veressa was able to hit 5 digits for the first time. So I'm confident that I'll be able to complete the Archon quest here easily. The Samsara section with Dunyazad was definitely a drag to get through, especially since we're forced to follow her with the slow walking speed. But after a few hours, we finally finished the act. There was also a section where we were forced to light up the Dendro monuments. But Dendro Grana came in clutch again, and basically helped us through the quest. I didn't really need any portable waypoints as the Dendro Grana lasted long enough for me to get to this specific location to unlock all 3 of the Dendro monuments. The pyramid domain consists of a few fungi, so it was pretty easy. The last domain was a bit challenging with our old friend Electro Hammerbro back. But this time, I just focused on him and took him down before he could heal. The climax of this battle was against Scaramouche. And to be honest, the boss fight is a bit challenging because of his Electro resistance. I actually had to do the mechanics to avoid taking damage, but we were still able to get through it without any issues. The second phase was kind of interesting since we do get a Trial Nahida in the team. Since my team is Electro, I also couldn't just destroy the Nirvana engines, so I had to basically sacrifice Oruran. But hey, at least I got an achievement. Afterwards, I was able to start dealing damage to the boss, and I finished the boss off with the trusty Dendro Bunny. Sumeu was definitely long, with the majority of the quests being dialogue heavy, but it was nostalgic as well since it's been a few years since I did it. But with around 7 hours, I finally completed the Sumeu Archon quest. Before I start Fontaine, I had to get through another Dane's Left quest. The only part that I had trouble with was the part where I had to light the bonfire. This is basically where I use my final elemental lifeline. And to make it more interesting, I shot the grass with amber to light up the fire, and then used overload to light up the pot. The domain also had a few Electro slimes in here, and as annoying as they were, I was happy to see them rather than an Electro Abyss Lector. Eventually, I was able to complete the final act in Sumeu. The final challenge on this Electro-only account is my favorite of all, the Fontaine Archon quest. This quest started out needing me to wet the flowers in order to collect them. But since we're Electro-only, what can I do? Luckily, Hydro Grana exists in Fontaine. So by collecting them and quickly teleporting, I was able to wet the flowers and pick them all up at once. The Fontaine Archon quest was definitely very dialogue heavy, but a few domains that involved combat were easy for Veressa. The longest part was honestly the Fortress of the Meropide, and if I can take anyone here to suffer along with me, it would definitely be the Electro Abyss Lector. The next part of the Archon quest had another domain with some Helijules, but they weren't much of a threat. In the Farina Memories, we had to defeat a few robot enemies, and it was pretty easy. The last boss was against the whale, and even though the second part did have some Electro resistance, we just had to break the shield with Veressa before we finished taking out the trash. To be honest, Fontaine's Archon quest was quite easy, and the hardest part of the Archon quest was probably seeing this cutscene again. After around 6 hours, I completed a Fontaine Archon quest. This leaves us with one final quest to do as of version 5.5, which is the bedtime story. Since this quest also involves Dane, there was an Abyss Herald to fight. Thankfully it was Cryo this time, so we got through it without much trouble. This final part went by pretty quickly, but since this was a final quest, I could say that we've successfully beat Genshin with Electro only. Here are my characters that I've raised and gotten so far. And to be honest, I didn't expect to complete this challenge without swiping, because I was gonna swipe for Veressa if I hadn't gotten lucky with her. This whole entire challenge was pretty fun to do. Especially going back to the Archon quests made me kind of nostalgic and excited at the same time for what Genshin's got in store for us in the future. This entire challenge took me around 50 hours to do. So if you enjoyed this video, consider subscribing to the channel and let me know in the comments below what kind of other challenges you'd like to see in the future. I also stream this live, so feel free to drop by my Twitch whenever I'm live. As always, thank you for watching this video all the way to the end. Make sure to also check out this challenge where I spend 30 days farming Primo Gems non-stop on a brand new Genshin account, and I'll see you there.